Joining me now, Vice Chairman of the Joint Economic Committee, Utah Senator Mike Lee. Good to have you with us, Senator.
Thank you.
Okay, so Director Mulvaney laid out a couple things. He said, first of all, we shouldn't measure our success by how many people are on these assistance programs, but how many people we get off. He also talked about the fact that if you give a slight increase or keep a budget item steady, people in Washington count that as a cut. That's not how it works in our budgets at home when we're balancing our own checkbooks, but it sounds like such a radical idea to so many people out there.
Well, that's right. And here in Washington, people want to just keep government programs they have. They want to measure success by the growth in government, when the opposite really should be true. What we want is not bigger government. What we want are stronger citizens. And when we look at always increasing the size and the scope of government, we diminish the power of individual Americans. We weaken our institutions that have made our economy strong and our country great.
I want to ask you about the CBO score we expect to get today on the House measure passed on repealing and replacing Obamacare. There is some talk that if it's radically different than what the House had projected, they're going to have to vote again on health care. Meanwhile, you all are working on your own system and proposal over in the Senate. How's it going? We hear this working group meets twice a week. Any GOP senator can come. What goes on in those meetings? What can you tell us?
We're having a lot of discussions about the bill, and we all understand that the House bill has to be essentially rewritten. There's not going to be a whole lot about the Senate bill that looks identical to the House bill. What we do know is that it has to save at least as much money as the House bill does, these under our budget rules. But what we also know is that we're moving in a direction that will make health care more affordable for the American people. What we want to do is get the federal government out of the health care regulation business as much as we possibly can so that we can bring down the cost of health care and make it more affordable for Americans who right now in many parts of the country are finding it their single biggest expense.
Well, and there's a new report out coming through HHS, a senior official there saying the cost of individual Obamacare policies are up an average of 105% between 2013 and 2017 in 39 states using the federal exchange. Alabama's the worst example, up 223% from $178 to now almost $400. So those numbers help make your argument. But what about a measure, a proposal, a bill? Can you put forth that will actually change the reality of that for people who are writing those checks?
Well, we can learn a lot, Shannon, from the government regulation that's kicked in. Since the Affordable Care Act took full effect just about 4 years ago, what we've seen is an astronomical spike in the cost of health care. I think it stands to reason that when government gets involved and the price goes way up, perhaps we should roll back on the federal government's involvement and watch prices go down. You see, because excessive federal government intervention squelches competition. But when competition is allowed to thrive, then two things happen. Prices go down and quality goes up. That's what the American people expect and deserve, and that's what we hope to deliver.
Well, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said he could do with less drama from the White House, a little less drama down the road there on Pennsylvania Avenue. How much is the constant drip of talk about Comey, talk about Russia, talk about releasing information to the Russians? How much does that impact your ability to focus people and get things done there on the Hill, or does it?
I don't think it does. I mean, look, we're working on this process. I hope to continue working on this process until we're finished. We want to make sure we get it right, and we want to make sure we get it done. Sure, there are other things going on, but it's Washington. There are always other things going on. We can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Is the president, though, a partner for you in this and things like getting the Senate bill drafted? We know what happened with the House, that there was a lot of last-minute arm twisting and deal making to get this thing done. Are you operating just solely as a legislative body at this point with no influence from the president? Would it be helpful for him to get involved, or do you prefer to do it on your own?
At this point, it's operating within the Senate. I'm sure there will be more involvement from the White House down the road, but at this point, we've got Republican senators working day in, day out to make sure we get this done and get it done right.
Okay, The Hill in a piece today says Republicans are struggling to rack up legislative victories during President Trump's first 100 days in office, despite having their first unified government in a decade. And talk about the pressure that you all now feel. Do you feel the pressure?
Oh, sure. And it's appropriate. The pressure has been put on us by Washington itself. The pressure is pressure that we ourselves have caused as a Congress. In other words, when we've overextended the federal government's reach and we've caused a lot of people throughout the country to suffer as a result, that makes it incumbent upon us to undo the damage that we've done. We've got to undo a lot of the harm that we've been inflicting on the American people. by extending the federal government's reach far beyond its intended limits.
Well, I know you've written some excellent books on just that topic. They're worth a read for folks out there who'd like to know a little bit more about how it's supposed to work. Senator Mike Lee, good to see you. Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much.
Again, waiting on